This video is specifically for somebody that wants to stay at a job. They don't really want to go start their own business. They love what they do. They want to work in a business for somebody else, but they want to be the top earning employee. And I don't mean they make $1 or $2 more than the guy below them. I mean they're wanting to be a number 2. It's what we would call an intrapreneur. So somebody that starts and runs businesses. We commonly understand that term now, entrepreneur or business owner. An intrapreneur is somebody that does entrepreneurial things but within a business but does not carry the risk of the business. And so there's a lot of people that they do not want the headache of running the business and having to deal with the tax and all of that, but they want to be a really, really top earning employee, and they're willing to work hard to get there. So I've got a couple great stories to go with this, and then also a book, and I'll recommend the book now. My suggestion would be to order the book. You can also listen to it on audiobook, and it's called The Magic of Thinking Big. And in especially there's a section right in the middle that talks about how to bring value to a business in order to become the highest paid employee. So the first story is simply going to be my brother-in-law, and I'm not going to give a tremendous amount of detail there because I don't know a lot about his financial situation other than he's like top dude. It's not his business, but he's worked for 2 different companies that basically have traded him back and forth, and he's grown up the ladder because one's leveraged off and said we need that guy, and so they'll give him a big signing bonus, hired him on to that company, and then I think he got hired back again. He's worked up to this point he went to school to be an electrical engineer, and now he's in a very, put it this way, he's in a very big business that has some very big contracts, okay? And so now he's in a position where he's the guy in the office and people come to him with all the problems. There's really no room for advancement at this point. He's at the top and he's doing really well. And it's because if you knew the guy, you would understand his ability to apply himself is next level above almost everybody. He understands the game. The game is to make the business money and to solve problems for the owner. And because of that, few years he shot right to the top, okay? So that I'm obviously a lot of connection with him. I understand that one. The next one is actually my neighbor, believe that or not. So wonderful story here that maybe other people can relate to, and that is he worked front desk at a hospital, at a local hospital. So it's not like he's a doctor. He doesn't have he's not an MD. He's not a nurse. He's not a nurse practitioner, nothing like that, right? He worked at the front desk, and he earned a reputation as being a guy that could solve problems. So he knew everybody that came in, and he was able to service people's needs and get things done at a position at a front desk. So his reputation was so well known throughout that hospital that people knew if they needed something done that they could ask him to do it and it would get done because his connection with other people, he had no problem going and cashing in a favor and then having this other person get this job done. So what he also did, now he was not offered the position that he currently has now. That's usually not how it goes. He had interest in advancing but did not want to become a doctor. He wanted more of a management position. So he obviously found a way to get privy to when different job openings became available. And so he came over one day. He knows I read a lot of financial books and whatnot. And he goes, hey, do you by chance have any suggestions or a book or anything? Here's the situation. This is where I work, all that stuff. He goes, there's an upper level management position. He goes, honestly, I'm really not qualified for it per se. I'm not even remotely close on the ladder to that position. Do you have any suggestions on how, if I go in for this interview, at least I can put my best foot forward? And I was like, yes, absolutely. And then I recommended him the book of The Magic to Think Big, and then talked with him just a few minutes. And I was like, the understanding that you need to know going into this position is you don't say I'm going to be, I'm dedicated and, I show up for work every day and I'm a great employee and I'll do what you need me to. The way that you win a position, and convincingly so, is to show up and say, I understand that the position, the job of this position is to make this corporation money. That is my purpose. And be like, so that is the dedication. It's not to pad my own ego. It's not to pad my own wallet. It is specifically to make this business money. If I can bring money into this business or save this business money, that is the position that I'm applying for. And most people, when they hear that, and you understand the philosophy that as an employee, this is where so many people's philosophy is terribly wrong. As an employee, your job is to make that business money. That is the only reason you are there. Unfortunately, especially with young folks, they feel entitled to a job or entitled to a position because they've been there for a certain amount of time, but they somehow think that the world owes them a job. They think that they're bringing value to the business by just filling a position to do a job. So if you're a factory worker and you make widgets, you think, if I make one more widget than everybody else, that's where my value is. And yes, there is some more value, and that's how you get to a position where, maybe your coworker makes $15 an hour, but you make $16 an hour. It's like, because the boss sees, he puts in a little extra, he's my guy, he'll get an extra buck. He'll get an extra $40 a week. You know what I mean? That's not how you really grow to be into that real top end position. The top end position understands that you are there to make the business money, and that rubs low end employee mentality really wrong, because they're like, oh no, it's his business, it's the owner's business, he's making all the money, I'm just here to do the job, I know how to do the job. And you feel entitled to get a check. You'd be like, it's his job to go out and get the money. Wrong answer. Not if you want to be at the top end. You need to find ways to bring or save the company money. Now, that being said, some people, you're going to have to be very, very creative. Some people are in positions that they cannot grow any further. Okay, I understand that there are some businesses that you simply cannot get to a position of making a lot of money, right? Let's use a very rudimentary example would be to say, I'm going to work at a fast food place and then I'm going to become a manager. You're pretty well topped out at being a manager, unless you get to a point where maybe now you can get to where you're managing your own stores. But at that point, the best thing you could do is probably move and open your own franchise. But even at that point, there's not going to be that same growth, that top tier position of pay, let's be frank, is not going to be what you're looking for. Now, if that's what you want to do and you're like, hey, I'm perfectly fine being the manager of these fast food restaurants, and you accomplish that, then you did it. Excellent. But those positions, you're going to have to work really hard for those as well, like you will in any of them. But those aren't the ones I'm talking about. And I also know that there are positions that are more automated. I was talking with a guy just the other day about that he works in an electric cooperative, so like the people that deliver electricity to your house, right? So they have contracts. You're not at the level that you are. It's not like you can't just go out and recruit a new person to sign up for your electricity, because it doesn't work like that. They're on a specific grid that they have a contract for. So the only way that you're going to add value to the business is either to decrease costs or make it run more efficiently. And most of those places, they already have that stuff automated and they don't really care. It's just producing income. So they're not really worried about the extra $1,000 that you found to save. They're looking for big numbers, millions of dollars. And chances of getting into that position are slightly less, but it is possible. There's obviously upper level management somewhere, and that's where I would say do what my neighbor did and start looking for how to get into some of those positions. And it's not by being the hardest working employee, it's by being probably the smartest one. So back to the story then of my neighbor. He read the book, he showed up, I saw him right before he went to the interview. He's like, wish me luck. And I was like, yep. He is dressed for the part, and I mean a nice suit. Dude looks good. There is not a hair out of place. He is dressed for the job that he wants. And he has got a leather binder portfolio. And he's like, I read the book. He goes, it was absolute gold. He goes, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my best. He went in for the interview. They had interviewed a whole bunch of people. Nobody showed up dressed like he was, which to me I find amazing. This is an upper level management, like, director position of a hospital, and I don't mean just like, I don't think it's just one, it's multiple hospital branches. So this is pretty high up in the ranks, especially coming from a guy that worked the front desk of a hospital. He walked in, was dressed the part, he was prepared with a portfolio and an understanding of what he needed to bring to the business with a reputation that preceded him, and he got the job. He literally jumped over top of everybody else in that position and got his own office. He's got his own assistant. He's got about anything that he could possibly want. And it's amazing to see when you change your philosophy and you figure out a way to bring the business money, how you can grow into a situation where you become the number two. You're the Robin to the employer's Batman. Okay, so now this is a suggestion then of how I would do this at a small local business. So what I'll do is I'll use where I had one of my first jobs was working at the pool company, and I started off as a laborer. Then I started at least being able to get more jobs done. So then I was feeling really good because I was the head of my own, 2 or 3 man crew. And I drove the truck out, and I was the guy in charge of getting that specific job done for that day. So I was feeling pretty good at myself, especially about 19 years old. But I didn't understand how to really bring the business more value other than just doing the job. Now, interestingly enough, I've talked to my employer since then and say, man, the things that I wish I know now, I was a terrible, not a terrible employee, but it's like, not the type of person that you would want. And I kept thinking, just going, the guys ahead of me that have been there longer are making a few dollars more, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, I know that the one guy in particular sits in the truck and reads the newspaper for a couple hours a day, just goofing around, using the excuse that he's waiting for something to dry. It's like the typical shirking that we see almost all employees do. And I was like, and he's making more money than me, so it put a bad seed in my mouth to where then I was like, okay, well, on Friday mornings I'm gonna go to breakfast while I'm on the clock, thinking that a half an hour of going and getting breakfast was gonna somehow change something, like I was getting paid for some sort of benefit. That it's like just terrible thinking. When in reality now, if I worked with the knowledge that I have now, if I was in that business, I would say I'm going to continue to do the job that you need me to do, and not only am I going to do it as efficiently as possible and I'm going to get the job done, but when I am done at the end of the day, I'm going to clock out at 4 or 5 o'clock or whatever the time is to clock out. I'm going to say I'm going to work an extra hour not on the clock for you giving me homework. I want to know what I can do to be the best employee. And I don't mean the hardest working one that gets the jobs done. If that's what you need right now, then I'm going to fill those shoes. But in the future, I want to know, what can I do to actually bring sales and sell more? How do I make this company money? And at first, they're going to be like, well, I enjoy the enthusiasm, and they're probably going to brush you off because most people try a little bit and then they quit. Most employees go into something saying, if you pay me more, I'll work harder. And it doesn't work like that, because it never works out. If you go into your boss and you say, if you give me a raise, I'm going to work harder, then you might get the raise, but just because he just wants to get you to leave. He's going to give you a $1 raise or 50-cent raise or $2 or whatever, but it's not the position you're wanting to be in. He's just trying to get rid of you. But most people then also say, well, this is all I'm paid to do. I'm not paid to think. I'm not paid to do this job. And it's like, you will never grow with that mentality. You need to go in and specifically say, I do not expect a raise right now at all. But what I want is more responsibility, and I want you to hold me accountable, and I want to be the highest paid employee. And not only do I want to be higher paid than all of these guys, and I don't expect that that's going to be the case right now, but give me 6 months to prove it. 6 months to a year. If I can show you that I can stick with it for at least a year, 6 months to a year, would you consider a raise at that point? And that answer is going to be a hard yes. Don't go in and ask for the raise. Say, I'm going to do it and I'm going to prove it, but I don't want, and then I would specifically say, I don't want the standard raise. I want you to see the value, and I will bring you the value first. But if I continue to work, if I do 6 months, a year, and you don't see the value that I bring, then, and you haven't held me accountable and you haven't helped me grow, then I'm going to have to work somewhere else. But I love working here and I want this business to grow, and I literally want to be the Robin to your Batman. And then he might say, okay, well, I like the enthusiasm. I'm going to give this guy a try. You better hold up to it and you better accomplish. Then you just continue to go in. Every time the job's done, hey boss, is there anything else that I can do today that's going to bring you value? Is there something that just really needs done? This job is finished. Can I go work on a new piece today? Is there something around the shop? Is there a new lesson that you have for me? Some hands-on teaching, something that I can do off the clock to help this business. Get that answer and go execute and go do that. It means you're going to have to work harder than everybody else for a little while. Now, as you get into a position of growing, your boss is going to be very worried that now as you start to understand how business works, he's going to think, I'm going to train him all up, and then he's going to leave my business and go start his own business. And you know why he's going to think that? Because that's probably happened to him before. Somebody gets to a position where they learn how the business works, and then they say, well, now I don't need to work here anymore. I want to be the man. I'm going to go start my own business. And all he did was train a competitor. I've done that before. I have worked and trained somebody up in my business and said, this person's going to be loyal to me. They're going to be my number two. And then next thing you know, they turn around and they're like, I'm not going to do what you want to do. I'm going to go in competition against you. And boy, does that sting, and that sits with you for a long time. So your employer already probably sees that. So therefore, going into this opportunity, I would tell him that you would be willing to sign a non-compete for 10 years, 15 years, whatever, from the point that you no longer have the job. Not from today, because he's like, I don't want to train you for 10 years and then 10 years you go in against me. Just say, you teach me everything now. And that means if we have a falling out, or I lose this job, or I decide to leave, 10 years from the day that I leave, I cannot compete in this business within a certain radius. Especially like using the pool company as an example, we say, if you're building a swimming pool, chances are 100 miles away, you're not building those swimming pools anyway. So in that non-compete that I would have drawn up, legally it wouldn't take very much to do it, but in that position, and he would probably be happy to pay for it, honestly. He'd probably just give it to his CPA and say, hey, come up with something quick, and they would jot that down and say, okay, then you cannot compete within 100 miles in a 10-year period. So this way, if you want to start your own business, you got to hit the road. And then that way, if you do get to a point where you're like, I just can't work here anymore, you didn't pigeonhole yourself, now you do have another option. But showing that intent that you want to know how this business works to make this business money, and I plan on staying here, and someday maybe I buy the business or take it over, or at the very least, I'm just your number one employee until I retire. Okay, and then train somebody else into that position. You start speaking that language to an employer, and you're going to start getting taken a lot more seriously, as opposed to the guy that comes in and says, well, I need a raise, because the cost of living is going up, and if you pay me more, I'm going to work harder. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna get that dollar raise, and you're gonna feel really good, and then you're gonna go work harder for like a week, and then all of a sudden you're just right back to your same old antics. So change your philosophy on your position as an employee. Your job is to make the business money. Okay? At the very least, it's to save the business money. And don't go charging into this position telling the boss how to do his job. Guarantee you think you know more than your boss. You probably do not. He knows how that business runs. He understands intricacies of that business that you have no idea even exist. So also be very careful about coming up with a big list of, well, we need to pay Jimmy less because he's an idiot, and we need to do this and do this. That's not what you do. You don't show up with a list telling the boss what to do. You show up and say, You tell me what to do, and I will prove that I am indispensable for you. And when I am asking you for a new responsibility, all I'm asking is you take a little time to show me the responsibility, and I'll do the homework for free. So I hope this video brought you some value, and I hope that it can really make a difference of how you can change your philosophy in the place that you work.